it looks like everyone is slowly joining. So I'll open and I welcome everyone to our Nexus seminar series together with the UNU Flores Institute and TU Dresden. Serena Couchy is representing UNU Flores and I'm representing TU Dresden. And so we always have interesting speakers on the Nexus, on the resource Nexus and sustainability. And today I'm very happy to be welcoming Ilka and to be presenting in the session today. I was thinking about how long I've known Ilka. I think it's 6 years now. We met while we were both working at Leuphana University in Lüneburg and are now collaborating at TU Dresden. And Ilka has a really special CV and you have a lovely term for this, Ilka. You have this interaction between an academic perspective and a practitioner perspective.
It's the pragademic.
A pragademic. So Ilka will be, she already sharing her slide, will be talking about learning to further sustainability-oriented innovation in business from outside and within. And Ilka really has this dual perspective, and I'm very curious. And before Ilka finished her PhD at the Imperial College London, so you also bring an international perspective. So you have experience with the German, but also the UK focus. So yeah, very, very happy to have you here today, Ilka. In terms of the housekeeping and the participants, just a reminder for those who've joined before and for those who are new, we have a question and answer section where you can ask any content related questions. Ilka will be presenting for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a question session where we can answer all of the questions that turned up throughout the presentation. And if you have any technical issues or difficulties, you can post those in the chat where Zainab will be kindly assisting with that. All right, having said that, again, welcome Ilka, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Samanti, and I'm really happy to have been invited to this lecture. To do a little bit of expectation management for the audience. You probably all know I can't see any of you, so I'm just speaking to a black screen. And the other thing is I also tailored this towards an academic audience. So as much as Samanti advertised the pragmatic expertise, today is very much about research I have done. In terms of background, so I've been working since 1997 in the area of sustainability and started very much at the end of the value chain. So this is me during an apprenticeship as waste manager, and I'm putting acid from an incineration plant onto a lorry. And thankfully, I've been working my way a little bit more towards the proactive management of sustainability. And from about 2007, at the Nexus of Business and Natural Science was focused on sustainable innovation. I hold both the German and British citizenship, and pretty much all of my formal education and work experience up to 2018 took place in the UK, apart from that very early apprenticeship in the 90s. So I'm always drawing on the German and on the UK perspective. So my focus now, still sustainable innovation, and especially processes in established businesses. And as Samanti was saying, I'm a strategic research partner at Technical University Dresden at her chair. And I'm also the director of sustainable circularity at Indeed Innovation in Hamburg. And I'm always interested in learning. So I only finished my PhD in 2017. And learning is also bringing me to today's subject matter. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to do a really brief introduction on how I'm framing learning and sustainable innovation in this talk today. And then I'm going into the 3 points pretty much in the order that are also presented in the talk overview on the UNU Flores website. Starting with outside in, where I'm looking at alliance learning as an approach for organizational learning. and inside out as experimentation during the innovation process. And inside out, even more inside, i.e. the individual within the organization. And I'm doing an exciting piece of research on personal belief as an enabler of organizational learning. And as I go along, the content might get a little bit more fuzzy, because the first part is very much completely published, all fine. The second part is also published, but also still there's so much still to understand. And the inside out is super exciting to look at and extremely hard to put in a framing and in a verbalization and in writing that allows to actually make it actionable and ensuring that there is a clear focus on sustainability when it comes to business as well. So starting with learning. So this is a really, really lovely general visual. And for me, learning is just basically you start somewhere at the point at the bottom left corner. And let's say you're an organization or an individual. You are the orange bubble. And you want to go somewhere where there's a goal, and you know you need to go somewhere and have a skill set or achieve something that is the green bubble. And learning is about making sure that where you are enables and you get where you want to be, either as an organization or with a process. And ideally over time, the where you are and where you want to be gets closer and closer together. And I know this is so general, but actually I haven't come across a visual like this anywhere. And this is very nicely created. It's a sketch by Professor Leuphana Blomsma from Hamburg University. And she created that during a discussion we had on a conference paper where I'm going to talk later about as well. So I'm going to revisit that outside in content on experimentation. But this is, for me, is learning. You are somewhere, you need to be somewhere, and learning enables you to bring those two elements closer together. And I know there is a lot of very deep learning literature, which today I'm not going to touch on. Next up, sustainable innovation. So I've got 3 slides on that. In terms of sustainable innovation, I think the key here is the word intentional on the first line. It's about the intentional introduction of radically new or incrementally improved products and services or entire systems, which based, and this is important, traceable, comparable analysis leads to environmental and or social benefit that are better than what was there before. And you can also see the heading is sustainable innovation. And the first line starts with innovation for sustainability. Then you also have sustainability innovation. And I appreciate that there are different academic discourses around why it might be more suitable to say innovation for sustainability than sustainable innovation or sustainability innovation. I'm going to use these terms interchangeably today in the materials. Because just to give you a little bit of background, I always used to use the term innovation for sustainability, but for example, word counts on academic paper sometimes require just a lot of sharpening, and having the term sustainable innovation enables losing quite a few words, for example. And if it's not essential to the debate on is it innovation for sustainability or sustainable innovation, then so be it. I'm happy to take challenges and questions on that later in the Q&A. Often sustainable innovation is classified by innovation type. So you've got a technology, a process, product, service, or business model, and then a dominant target. You've got ecological and or social, which is also alluded for in the definition here. And the level of disruption, which is here in this broad definition, and the assessment of sustainable innovation based on traceable comparative analysis typically takes either life cycle or value chain perspective. And this definition I'm offering up here is on the book, handbook of, no, this is from Innovation for Sustainability, this one I'm also going to talk about. They both came out in 2019. And so I felt compelled to give you 3 slides on this. This is a comparison I did in a book chapter in one of these books, just highlighting some of the key difference between conventional innovation and sustainable innovation, because rightly so, especially if we are trying to get work into mainstream journals. It's like, what's the difference? Why is this not the same as for conventional innovation? And this is based on Jay and Gerard from 2015. And you can see on the left-hand side, it's shorter. On the right-hand side, it pretty much has all of the conventional ones, plus more stuff. And then you have got the double externality as well. So it's not just the innovation phase, but also the diffusion phase of the innovation. And where it gets interesting with the challenges, you've got governance in there as well, because, for example, you've got collaboration needed for seemingly antagonistic agents. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in the outside-in alliance learning, where you have got sustainable startups partnering with a conventional large corporation. Then you have got the individual user versus the systems design duality. And what I think is really lovely is how the nature of the need and the role get its own nice row in this table. And I came across this book, even though it came out at the same time as the other one I already held up. And there was a beautiful summary of sustainable innovation offered in one of the earlier chapters. All in all, sustainable innovation questions the economy and the market ideology by focusing on sustainability rather than economic growth. So it's like a really fundamental difference. In doing so, it provides morality to innovation and contributes to the enlargement of the concept of innovation to dimension, social and environmental, that are set to ensure sustainability. So the human individual judgment factor or morality is at the core of judging and operationalizing sustainable innovation. So there is no straight up business case in many, especially non-economic business case for radical sustainable innovation. And I thought this was a very nice way of summarizing that. And just to be clear, these 2 books, just a little bit of nice information, came out at the same time, slightly different, well, they're completely different authors. But if you look behind the scenes, many of the people in this book actually collaborate with the people in this book. So it's one nicely connected sustainable innovation family when it comes to research. Obviously, many opinions. Now, moving on to the empirical work that we did, the outside-in, the alliance learning as an approach for organizational learning. Here, basically, I'm going to talk about a large meat company who realized that meat processing and distribution, is not really a long-term option in a world where the negative environmental impacts of meat productions are becoming more and more well-known. And I assume that the audience here also knows that very clearly. And defining, I like a nice definition beforehand, strategic alliances beforehand. So sustainability startups differ from conventional startups by integrating social environmental value creation, into their core business, followed by values-oriented, stakeholder-oriented approach. And established firms can advance corporate innovation through strategic alliances. So they are enablers of organizational learning. So basically, a strategic alliance is something I'm always talking today about the perspective of the large corporation. I'm looking at the innovation processes in the large corporation. And a strategic alliance is saying, I want to see where I can learn and how I can learn in order to get closer to the goal of not producing animal-derived protein, processing and distributing that as a product. And this is an example of outside-in learning. So when it comes to learning in strategic alliances, there are 2 main types. So you've got learning about the alliance, and you have got learning from the alliance partner. And this is quite an important distinction, especially when it comes to sustainable innovation. So learning about, when it comes to strategic alliances, is very, very all-encompassing. So it's along 5 dimensions. So it's the environment, the goals, the skills, the tasks, and the process. So it's about everything that enables the innovation process. And it's actually not about the content. It doesn't matter. It could be, it doesn't matter if it's a meat business or a stock business. So these learning about factors are taking place usually at the beginning when an alliance is started up. And the second one is the learning from. So this is also referred to as the content learning. And this involves like an exchange of knowledge that has value to the firm outside the scope of the alliance. And firms can also internalize this knowledge. And when it comes to strategic alliances between large and small companies, then the learning from is usually when there's criticism or worry from the startups about, our capabilities and our knowledge gets stolen and absorbed, and then we don't have anything that we can make money with anymore. So, and these studies on alliance learning and conventional innovation suggest that the early, that's one word missing on the slide, I apologize, the early stage of the alliance and also the initial selection of the alliance partner is dominated by learning about. So you go like, sometimes you hear informally, I just want to see if I like them. Whereas when it goes to the nitty-gritty, after you signed your non-disclosure agreement, then you do learning from. But everything beforehand is it's almost like the cuddly stuff. This is the research gap which we found. Usually when it comes to the alliance learning process, you've got a cyclical learning. So you start with something and you can see that there's the learning about very much as the beginning of this and the learning from at the later stage. And then at the bottom here, you can see the alliance learning outcomes. And you've got successful alliance management, and it says high alliance performance. That means basically, for example, in the case of big and small, a small company can use the distribution network of the large business, and the large business learns something about, for example, alternative protein solutions. Then you have got the management of several alliances. In our case, I'm going to go more in the details of that. There were 9 different startup alliances. And the learning from, again, as a reminder for the large corporation, is you've got knowledge internalization. So how can we produce and distribute and have less meat and alternative protein solutions in the shelves of the supermarkets? This is a visual summary of this basically study. On the left, you see what we called big meat. And on the right, you can see the alternative protein startups. So there were 9 of these strategic alliances formed by Big Meat. And Big Meat is one of the largest European meat producers and wholesalers, and had a turnover of over $2.5 billion in the fiscal year ending 2020. And as you can see, there's content knowledge symbolized here in the bubbles on the top, and questions from Big Meat. You can also see that the alternative protein startup look distinctively different from each other, but all definitely very distinctively different from Big Meat. And so just a little bit more detailed here. So we had from these sustainable protein startups, pretty much anything and everything. They were international and German-based, but also overseas-based, from insect-based protein, plant-based protein, to plant-based protein, including a technology platform, cell-based, plant-based, you name it, the alliance was formed. And the interesting one was at the beginning, you can see the S on tops because it was S for secret. And that started at the beginning of 2016. So secret was neither of the alliance partners actually admitted in public that they had started forming an alliance. And that is very, very unique in terms of the reasoning that was given. So for example, one of the very senior people in Bigmeat said, well, that startup in particular is really and I have to read this out, our ideological stereotype image of our enemies. So yeah, we found that. So in terms of, you still hear in conventional business activities and innovation activities, the tree huggers. So you must imagine an extremely small alternative protein startup talking about values, talking about animal welfare, talking about products where people get joy from. And Bigmeat employees listened. And it took them a while to actually go to the learning from stage, because the initial, what we highlighted here in green, the overcoming the inhibition threshold was big when it came to forming alliances between conventional business and sustainable startup, because the learning about took a lot of time. It took a lot of energy and effort from the side of the Bigmeat company and also from the startup in order to trust each other and us to even get to the learning from point. So as you already noticed, I kind of led on that that's quite special, this inhibition the inhibition threshold. And what we also found extremely curious when we looked at this case study, that the studies on alliance learning and conventional innovation suggested that the alliance selection partner phase is dominated by about the partner, while the partner management phase is all about the learning from the partner. And well, we found that for sustainable innovation, learning about matters through all of the learning cycles, especially for Bigmeat. Let me show you the overview here. So everything that you see in green here, those are the distinct sustainability related alliance learning specialities, if you want to call it that. Because what was interesting, all of the startups had the goal to change the mass market. So they wanted to get rid and help to enable a move away from mass market meat consumption and production and distribution. So they always had the goal to advance a sustainable mass market transformation. Bigmeat just thought, oh, there is a bit of an opportunity here, and there is also something going on when it comes to environmental factors. But they didn't have the goal. That wasn't even on the in their anywhere on their radar when they started this process to have a mass market transformation. So overcoming the inhibition threshold was extremely high. So I just I gave the example of the alliance secret. And then what we also found that in the learning cycles, you had the learning from, which was important, but at least as important, and I really mean that, was the learning about. So the constant willingness to engage with goals, with skill sets that was so different from the status quo in Bigmeat, enabled the succeeding of these. And I'm just going to skip it back here. So you can see there's only one alliance, the alliance C, that is the fourth from the top, that really completed more than one of the alliance learning cycle. and it allowed for the addressment and re-evaluation. So the learning about for some alliances was not even, ended over a period of almost 2 years. So substantial was this particular phase. So this is outside in alliance learning for innovation. It is distinctively different to alliance learning in conventional innovation, where the crux of the matter is often about stealing knowledge when it comes to creating sustainable innovation processes in large corporations, the willingness to engage in how things are done, what I called at the beginning the cuddly stuff, is definitely not to be underestimated. And actually we published this in long range planning at the last year to study. Moving on to Inside Out. So this is an organization where a corporation was looking to reach an ambitious sustainability goal and wants to learn about sustainable product innovation to achieve that goal. If you remember back, that one line was the two bubbles coming closer together. So all of this corporation wanted to do that in-house. And this is where my talk becomes a little bit more fuzzy, because I did publish on this nicely in 2017, but definitely haven't cracked the experimentation element of sustainable innovation, but I get to that as well. And so just shown this, when you hear experimentation, this is what many people talk about. This is the natural sciences experimentation process. Basically, you have an input, you've got different variables, you adjust them, that's the process. And at the end, you've got an output, and how you can compare the differences, you can derive your learning from. And that works really well in a controlled environment. However, when it comes to the inside out experimentation within corporations, that linear natural science process on experimentation doesn't mix so well with corporate sustainable innovation processes. And I just put in a few points why. Sustainability is a moving target. That means processes change, and replicability is near impossible, because ideally ambitions are constantly adjusted and adjusted and adjusted. The experimentation inputs are uncontrollable, because something very basic, the resources in the team change. Team members change as well, which is definitely also an experimentation input. The variable input is also uncontrollable, especially if you are looking at more sustainable product and service offers, because one customer is not like the next, and nobody's giving customers really any very basic, do you like this product? Yes, but that's completely meaningless in a way to really make sure that it's widely adopted at the end. And I think probably most important is the last point, that this linear experimentation process just cannot accommodate the messy nature of social interactions and dynamics that are always part of the corporate learning process. So that's why overall that process is really not suitable. However, it is always a clarity when the natural sciences experimentation process, clarity on the goal, on the learning goal, is required. And that is definitely also the case when it comes to experimentation for sustainable innovation. And what are those goals? What are we trying to achieve? What learning are we trying to arrive at? I'm going to show you something before I go into the stuff already published. So this is a slide from a 2021 conference paper. So what we did, we looked at a systematic literature review and structure different experimentation approaches along the technological innovation systems typology. We're working this up into a paper at the moment. And so for those of you who don't know, so the TIS, Technological Innovation System, there are 7 different functions. And what we found, yeah, okay, great. Each function has got a distinct approach to experimentation. But how experimentation or experiments are actually defined is only partially done. And we're now landed on something that there's a learning by. So for example, at the moment you have got learning by talking is through exchange, I mean, is nowhere really in the experimentation typology. But it's something that's definitely interesting at meeting. And basically what we are trying to create is an actionable sequence of experiment coming up with a process like that. But this is work in progress. So hopefully, if we meet again in a year or 2 years' time, experimentation for sustainability during innovation is something that you will just get 3 slides and know, yeah, I know all about it. So I alluded previously that the linear experimentation process, especially when it comes to the variables, the customer expectation, is very hard to grasp with anything that you can replicate. And the company I mentioned when I started talking about this experimentation approach had a very clear goal on we want to reduce our clothing going to landfill, and we are going to make sure that we learn about alternative service offers we can give to our customer. So as background, this particular company had less than 5% of the clothing that they all sold recuperated when it came to value in 2012, I believe. And so they said, okay, so we are going to destroy our business model, and we really want to get deep insight from the customers on how we can do it to create an offer where we don't have just linear clothing consumption, but actually where we as a company, the fiber that we put into the clothing production, that we get that back, and that the customers are going on us with that journey. Because, of course, as a second point, the resource-rich larger firms, if there are still any, other than big oil and gas, are much more likely than cash-strapped startups to commit to launch new value offerings to the market. That's still happening. And without sufficient testing whether customers have an appetite for new product services, this overcommit of resources can be catastrophic. So this is something that Steve Blank said, who is the guy who taught Eric Ries, who came up with a lean startup approach in college. And of course, this is the experimentation approach based on inside-out validated customer learning as a loop. So what I like to highlight here, so you've got you start at the top with an idea, you build something, you try and get some customer feedback on that, and then you get data and you constantly amend your product offer. So it's obviously called a minimum viable product. So this is about the value proposition at the heart. And those of you who have got a little bit of a business model background, so it has been very clearly asserted, if you start with the something like the business model or business model canvas as a starting point, then you are unlikely to succeed to do innovation for sustainability, because the structure that you are creating when you see the old structure and form is likely to reinforce the business status quo. So you're very unlikely to come up with processes that are going to be different in a meaningful way when it comes towards social and environmental value creation. So the organization, the clothing company, who had the very ambitious, we want to get lots of clothing back, said, this is what we want to go with. We are starting with this. And that is going to be our attempt to have an inside-out learning approach. That means we are trying to take our own customers, learn from them, come up with a new offer, and therefore we are going to change the market and take our learning outside. But we are definitely trying to generate all the learning within through experimentation based on validated customer learning. This is a reminder of the project goal: divert all of our sold clothing from landfill through a 2-year project. And yeah, I was kind of earlier, I said it was less than 5% that they recovered. Yeah, it was 1%. And the monetary value was about in the region of $7 million. And they really had no idea how to do that. They just knew they really wanted to use the validated customer learning approach. So what was done was putting together customer validated learning with absolute boundaries for social, environmental impacts, plus also boundaries for the economic value creation. And this whole process then was called an experimentation for sustainable innovation process. And I put a visual together on this. So this was the case study on this particular project. So you can see all in those bubbles, you've got red social, you've got the environmental in blue and economic in green, and you've got the validated customer learning cycle going in there with different experiments running, all with the same goal. We want to make sure that we're diverting our clothing from landfill. And what was interesting that, for example, there was they always wanted to keep the making sure that social and environmental goals were kept, which was actually an issue. I get to that later. And then discarded experiments earlier on. Based on the social and environmental development of any experiment, rather than on the customer validated learning. So the customer validated learning was the starting point, but really what shaped the project was the social and environmental point. So you can see a discarded experiment on the left-hand side. I think I'd like to highlight here when it comes to sustainable innovation. There's a discussion whether it is sensible to have anything like the boundaries that are shown here, because through the application of technology, the boundaries might always shift. But I think we don't have any technology used at scale that is suitable to do that. So I think absolute boundaries at this point in time are definitely useful, because we do have a finite time for action overall, not only for this project, which was 2 years, that's why it says finite time for action at the bottom, but also we've got, when it comes to sustainability challenges, obviously a finite time to manage irreversible change. We've got some key lessons from this project, from this inside-out experimentation approach. Well, surprise, the project did not succeed with this learning approach, but still lessons for sustainable innovation were learned and embedded. So I already alluded to the business model canvas thing. So when I say thing, I mean the reinforcement of familiar processes. So this also happened here. So that means, oh, we've got these different structures and processes in place, and therefore we can't really trial these new business models in depth. So the second one also was, so the goal overall was very much an environmental goal. Goal is to divert all of sold clothing from a landfill through a 2-year project. And then the ambition went into, well, we need to also always make sure for each experiment to meet the social impact dimension of sustainability as well. And that was very challenging and led to discarding of perhaps quite promising experiments from a customer value perspective. Then we have got the third point, surprise. Economic value creation dominated and really blocked some of the experimentation activities, especially at the senior level. So there were in total 9 learnings, but I picked out some. So this is closely linked with, you need to make sure that the senior management is completely brought along in the process early on, because if you've then saying, oh, we have got this raft of experiments, we are going to pick X, Y, Z to take forward, and they say, I can't see the economic opportunity here, then something got killed off very, very quickly. And the last one is interesting because that leads on to the final part, to the inside out part of my presentation, is that there was personal motivation to conduct some experiment and action outside the official project. So that meant, for example, how can that staff met with groups of friends in order to try out certain service ideas that were ahead within the project team, and basically used their friends as almost like a validated customer learning cycle, despite not having any official license or license to operate given by their employer. And this was really useful because the learning that they derived from these informal actions and experiments really fed and informed the official experiments. And it also enabled these internal staff to become more comfortable with the uncertainty that is inherent to doing experiments for sustainability. So I'm going to pick up on that individual motivation and personal element in the final part, which is the inside out, which are about personal beliefs as an enabler of organizational learning. So this is, well, the inside out belief. So this is the individual level, me as an individual within a corporation, contributing, wanting to do sustainable innovation, and why it is important to have clarity on these beliefs, because the innovation process is fueled by the desire for learning. So what are beliefs? So beliefs are conscious and unconscious, and changing how individuals see themselves and their surroundings is strongly connected to beliefs. And what is also interesting is that beliefs are feeling true to the individual at a specific moment in time. So it is not something that I can, I guess, especially unconsciously, really control. And beliefs enable me to create a working model of the world and to help me achieve what I desire as a goal, and also avoid undesirable futures. And individual decision-making is shaped by beliefs, and beliefs are also predispositions. They're called predispositions of behavior. And now is the link to the sustainability activities in corporations. So shared beliefs are common in corporations, and they are a key element of a corporate culture. So this means, for example, some businesses who've got a very clear corporate culture are, I would say, attracting a samey type of person. This is basically, and just really briefly, values and contrasts to beliefs are not linked to any distinct situations. So they are more like a lot more abstract, and they're not tied to any specific situation. But for example, I know how I believe I should conduct myself as a colleague in order to achieve the goal of furthering sustainable innovation in a corporation. Then we have got the outside-in versus inside-out for belief system. So in the past, it was very clear that if I've got a goal set by the corporations when it comes to sustainability, that is going to, me as an individual, that's going to impact my behavior. And if the corporation says, we are going to do sustainability, this is going to happen, and we want you, staff, to make it happen, that is really supporting it. And that's completely established, this outside in, I as an individual feel empowered to act towards sustainability and to also try quite stretching innovation projects when it comes to social and environmental value creation. That's well established. But the inside out, how me as an individual might be operating either in an environment where these goals exist or where they might not exist, that is not clear. And there was a theoretical framework created in 2019 and beliefs about the growth, achievement, and collective outcomes and how they relate to individual leadership for sustainability activities. And that was purely conceptual. And this is a study that I'm doing with a colleague of mine that Samanti also knows well at the Leuphana University, Michael Bohr. And what we are seeing, or what we are looking at, is how managers are using, or how they are perceiving and act on the corporate sustainability activities, and how that is linked to their personal beliefs. So that comes back to the point, I actually put this in the slide just to remind myself at the beginning when I talked about sustainable innovation, that sustainability provides morality to innovation. And obviously morality is based on also individuals, and individuals who belief system that allow this morality dimension of sustainability to flow into the innovation process. And that's completely empirically explored. And so we thought, right, we are going to look at the belief systems of sustainability managers, serious and senior people in 17 businesses. And we did in-depth interviews in 2019 and revisited some of those in 2022. And we covered large parts of the German clothing and textile market, so the mainstream conventional business, but also some of the sustainability pioneers, in order to see, was this framework that was created, is it actually able to capture, and I don't want to use the word classify, but does it help to get clarity on the belief system in a sustainability pioneer and in a mainstream company? How are they different? What does it mean on how can we promote it? How can we promote learning to move along in order to be effective in the role to push sustainable innovation within the corporation? And the next sentence then, yeah, how there are different logics of effectiveness. They are called when it comes to how beliefs are linked to sustainability action and leading sustainability activities within corporations. And they are rational, responsible, and relational. rational, as you might see, is quite pragmatic. Responsible is more ambitious, and relational is very much about a collaborative way, acting during sustainable driven activities within a corporation. And we found the interviewees had a really distinct, which is nice, expressed belief according to the relationships they have internally within the corporation. The complexity and context is an interesting one, because that's basically how also you engage with suppliers. You know, are you putting pressure on them, or are you looking to see how you can engage with them together? Mutual well-being focus linked to that point as well, not only with suppliers, but also when you do check-ins during the progress of innovation projects, and engaging the whole person. Again, that's where the boundary, I guess, between, and not again, but where the boundary between corporate role, activity, and leadership for sustainability is blurring with how somebody chooses to live her life in private, or in the private field. So what we find that we can classify these belief systems. This is a screenshot from our current work. This is at the moment under revision in quite a good journal. And the obvious questions when we look at our belief systems, okay, so you can classify them, and you know you need to learn in order to become an even more effective, compassionate leader for sustainability, for sustainable innovation project. But what the implication are that we found that you can classify them. We found also that it's a distinct link between some of the social elements of the sustainability debate, but what it means exactly when it comes to capability for sustainable innovation, and how you foster them, how you develop learning programs that are fit to further or develop or evolve a belief system. We don't know that. That's obviously also deep psychology facet, or element to this research. And that is a next step in new data collection. So a final little note on references. I did not attribute all of the individual points, but I included here the sources that I talked about today, and everything is very, 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 very detailed, obviously cited and accounted for in these papers and publications. And I think I'm coming in at 46 minutes, and say thank you. And do you have questions?
Thank you very much, Ilka, for your insights on the presentation. So to the participants, you now have the opportunity to write in the question and answer sections. There's two questions that we received throughout the talk, which I'll ask to you, or actually we wanted to give the opportunity, the participants the opportunity to ask questions in person. I do have a challenge, because we have a question from, I think it's Citizen participant, but Katharina Stein is 15 times, joined 15 times because she registered all of the participants, and I don't know whom I can give who I can invite to speak. So on behalf of the Citizen participant, I'll ask you, Ilka, on how innovations, environmental and social, can be sustained without economic consideration. So maybe you know in which direction or in which area that comment could go. Otherwise, we can check back, and I'll highlight Edo's comment or ask Edo's question first.
I hope I did not communicate that social and environmental innovation should be sustained without economic dimension. What I'm very strongly saying is that in order to achieve very meaningful and radical social and environmental innovation. Using the economic dimension as lead for the business case is not working.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that, it's good that you clarify that. And if the system participant wants to follow up on that, then you can. And while you're addressing this, I'll hand the word over to Edel, if you want to ask your question in person. Oh, I'll open that.
Happy to do so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, I'm sorry, I don't know where I am. I'm just here in front of my screen. Good to know. Thank you, Ilka. Thank you very much. And please excuse my rusty voice. So you mentioned that you could not replicate the results for sustainability, and you said even it's nearly impossible. So what is the impact then on the research design of future studies if we want to analyze sustainability? Because then we would always compare apples and oranges.
So I do, for that very reason, I completely specialize in qualitative research as well. And as an example, I talked about the key lessons derived from the project that didn't work out for that clothing manufacturer. So that manufacturer has started a very similar research project with almost, I think the project team, there's significant overlap between the project that didn't work out. So I know that there's also a qualitative research taking place to look again at the innovation for sustainability process and the learning derived within the clothing manufacturer then. I don't think they will use the customer-based learning. So you cannot compare what happened in 2012 to what happened or is going to happen between 2022 and 2024 with the same research design, because they're going to use a different theoretical framework. But I think what is possible is to look at, when you do sustainable innovation, you can compare what happened at the beginning with a conventional baseline to what happens with the outcome, with the impact at the end.
And you would then, if I may, would you then, so if you compare different countries, for example, how would you then proceed?
So in terms of the process, it hasn't, to be really honest, it hasn't occurred to me to compare the processes between different countries. What I would find very interesting, or what we are trying to do is, for example, with the individual belief system. So we look at 17 companies. Mm-hmm. So we're using the same research design, the same in-depth, very structured, in-depth interview guide in order to see how these individuals within their contexts differ within 17 organizations. But I'm completely with you. If we are going to run that particular interview with a new set or with somebody else working in the same company in 5 years' time, even with the same questionnaire, because the companies might already have moved on so much with the sustainability efforts, you can't compare the results.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So those were the questions that came from the audience. I wanted to ask you, Ilka, because you just brought up the point, especially to compare. So this 10-year comparison, if you're looking at the time for the textile industry, mm-hmm. and the fibers from 2012 to, and then 10 years later from 2022. and if I'm thinking in terms of the parameters that have been changed, are there, from your perspective, what are the significant parameters that changed during those 10 years for the manufacturer, and what makes them pick it up again?
For this particular one of the partners where they recover the fibers from has changed, and how that partner is going to put those fibers back into use for new products has changed. Also, to be quite frank, I don't think they collected very good data in terms of where it went with the original partner. So I think one of the parameters that has changed is the partner they chose to work with in order to engage customers to get fibers back. I also think parameters has changed is the urgency of the resources and climate debate has massively advanced and has become a lot more to public knowledge. In 2012, if you went into a store, it was complete novelty to see the store something doing customer engagement, especially it was a mainstream business around sustainability. I think it is much more common now. Especially in the clothing sector.
Thank you, Ilka. That's just I watched the Economist outline for 2023 and trends to watch out for without the sustainability focus, and one of them was circular economy in the fashion industry, and I find that that's really.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but yes, it is more mainstream now, and that means different customer awareness. And for any business operating in the fashion and textile sector and B2C, that is a parameter that has massively changed, because in an experiment that completely might have bombed and been unattractive to senior management in 2012, 2013, if they try and run it in 2024, it has a completely different ground to fall on. That's why it's very dangerous when it comes to sustainability innovation to say, we've tried that before. We only tried it 8 years ago. So, yes, you did. You did it differently. What did you learn? I'll do it differently.
Thank you, Ilka. We have another question from another citizen participant saying that sustainability innovation or innovation for sustainability approaches does not mix well with natural sciences experiments. How can new sustainable products, services be developed, since sustainability innovation is only focusing on improving existing products, services? So maybe you'll...
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. So the participant was asking about sustainability innovation or sustainability innovation approaches, and they're linked to natural science experiments. And then they make a link, how can new sustainable product services be developed? And say, since sustainability innovation is only focusing on improving existing product services. So I guess we need to take that apart, because I assume you have some more perspective that sustainability innovation is more than improving existing product services.
Yes, so innovation for sustainability is not just improving existing, also recreating them and recreating the business model. And just to be really clear, so the goal of the clothing manufacturers, that experimentation had the explicit goal and got public sector funding of, we are going to destroy our own business model. And that goes beyond improving existing products and services. So the ambition was there. And as I mentioned, the getting trapped in the existing processes, that was and the corporate existing culture and mindset, that those were the blockers to making anything more ambitious happen.
Yeah. And do you have, you already gave some of the insights in your talk about the link to natural science experiments. Is there anything in terms of new sustainable product development or innovation that you can link to natural science experiments that you want to highlight as well in response to that question?
No, not really. I've got a feeling that you've got something in mind, Samanti.
No, I was thinking mimicry, but I guess that's applies to all innovation, but especially in sustainability innovation that we draw on that, for example.
That's a process approach. So in terms of when it comes to natural science experimentation process, so it is a very controlled environment. You put something in, you do something to it, something comes out. So yeah, for example, if you do the validated customer learning, you do an A/B test, I guess then you're tagging onto something that is akin to the natural sciences experimentation process. You're tagging it onto something more cyclical and agile. But in terms of having a really linear learning process for anything that goes beyond incremental improvement, I don't really see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a linear process without flexibility.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Thank you, Ilka. So those were the questions from the group. So first of all, Ilka, thank you so much for the presentation and the insights that you shared. I have a lot more questions, so I'll answer one by one. For the group, I wanted to highlight that this was our first Nexus seminar this year. Now we'll go into the break because it's the semester break here in Germany, and we'll pick up again in April when the regular semester starts again, and there will be new Nexus seminar series, and then we will share the information and who will be speaking there. Is there anything you would like to add at the end of our session, Serena?
No more than what you just informed, and with that I would like to take the chance for everyone that has been following us throughout this semester, and then Ilka also from my side for such a overview and depth, also research at the same time on innovation. Thank you, and to all of you, see you in April.
See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Shall we stop the recording?
Yes. Bye, Ilka.
Bye.